Hello everyone, my name is Miriam and today I am going to show you how to make a really cute pumpkin table runner. So in previous tutorials I've showed you how to make these really cute pumpkin quilt blocks, and today I'm going to show you just one of the projects that you can use these quilt blocks for. This is what we're going to be making today. It's a pumpkin table runner. In this tutorial we're going to put together the quilt top, we're going to quilt it using a really cute loop-de-loop free motion quilting design, and we're going to throw some binding on it, and this is just perfect for fall decor. So this is just one of the projects that you can use those quilt blocks for. I've also created a free downloadable PDF that includes 5 other quilting projects that you can use these specific quilt blocks for. So if you're interested in that free resource, I'll have that linked down in the description box below, where you can go in, enter your email and download it, and then you will have 5 other quilt projects that you can make. There's some placemats that would go perfectly with this design, and then there's a few mini quilts and then a larger quilt as well in there. So if that's something you're interested in, go ahead and check out that in the description box below. I'm also going to include down in the description box below the tutorial that I did on how to do this quilting. I broke this tutorial up into a couple different videos so it wouldn't be so long and take so long to get through. If you want to learn how to do this free motion quilting design, which is a really pretty loop design, I will also link that in the description box below for you. Without further ado, let's jump into the tutorial. So for this project, we are going to first need to cut and create our quilt blocks and our other pieces. I'm going to pop up a graphic here on the screen right now that you can pause, and either you could take a screenshot or you could write down the pieces that you're going to need for the table runner quilt top. So what we are going to need is 2 of our 12.5-inch pumpkin quilt blocks. So 2 of these and 2 of our 6.5-inch quilt blocks. If you want to know how to make these quilt blocks, I will link the video where I show you how to make these up in the cards, up here on the top of the screen, and also in the description box below. If you want to be able to make these exact quilt blocks, you'll be able to do that. We need 2 of each of those blocks for the table runner. Then we also need 2 6.5-inch squares from our background fabric. I'm just using some white fabric for my background for this one. Then we need 4 2-inch by 12.5-inch strips, which will be our sashing. And then we also need 2 2-inch by 42-inch strips, which will be our top and bottom sashing for the table runner. And that's what you need for the quilt top. Then for the back of the quilt top, we are going to need a piece of fabric that is, I cut mine at 17 by about 44-45 inches wide. So, and I just had this really pretty orange woven, kind of a flannel-y type fabric. So I'm going to use that for my backing. And then you'll also need some batting. So you could use leftover batting from another project if you have enough. Or I like to buy these small prepackaged battings. This is the crib size from Pellon. I love their natural cotton batting. That's what I use in all of my quilts. It's my favorite batting. But I buy these smaller packaged batting pieces for small projects like this. So this comes 45 inches by 60. So I'm just going to cut a 17-inch by 45-inch piece for my batting. So that's a little tip. All of the products that I use in this video, I will have a list of them down below so you can find them. A really great place to find all kinds of sewing notions and fabric and everything is the Fat Quarter Shop. I'm sure if you like quilting, you know what the Fat Quarter Shop is, but I will also link that online store down in the description box below. I love they have an an amazing fabric selection, and pretty much any kind of notion that you can think of they have. So I will link them down in the box, and let's get going to actually make our quilt top. So what we want to focus on is our little 6.5-inch pieces. So our 12.5-inch blocks are done. We don't need to do anything more to those, but we need to create the center block with our pumpkin pieces. So it can go either way, however you like it, but I'm going to piece mine like that. And then we take our 6.5-inch squares and we just place them like that. And now I'm going to sew these two together and then these two together to create rows. And then we sew those rows together to create the 12.5-inch block that goes into the center. So let's do that real quick here on the sewing machine. So I'm going to take this to my ironing board and I'm just going to press this so it's laying nice and flat. And then I will meet you back at the cutting mat. Okay, here we have that block here with our two 6.5-inch pumpkins. They look very cute so far. So now we're just going to lay the blocks out so we can sew them all together into a long strip. So we want one of our patchwork pumpkin block like that, and then we're going to have that one there. And now in between and on the outside, I'm going to do one of those 2-inch by 12.5-inch sashing strips. We're going to go here, one in between these two, and one on the end piece. And then one on either end to create that large centerpiece. So I'm going to go ahead and add these to our quilt top. Now that I have all of these pieces sewn together, I'm just going to take this to the ironing board real quick just to press down those seams so this is laying nice and flat. Then we are going to take our two long 2-inch by 42-inch strips, and I'm going to sew these on the top and the bottom of the table runner quilt top, and then this will be done. Then we get to go on to the fun part, which is the quilting. Hey, here's what it looks like so far. Pretty cute already. I love these blocks so much. They're so cute. Might be a little partial, but all right, now that we have our blocks, or our quilt top made rather, now we need to make our quilt sandwich so we can actually quilt this. So I am going to grab my batting here real quick. I need to cut that. Yeah, this Pellon batting is just so soft. I love it. I've used other cotton batting brands, and this is just, it's the one I always come back to. I love it. I actually buy it in a huge roll that I use for actual quilts. So, and I bought it in the queen size because I rarely make a king size quilt. So, and that lasts me quite a long time actually. I don't make as many quilts as I used to. Now I need to cut this down. I'm just going to fold it in half and then just kind of do a rough cut. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be big enough or wide enough for my table runner. So I'm going to just place this on top. And that looks like I've got a little extra on the top and the bottom. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut with my rotary cutter and my ruler. Here we go. And now I have some extra batting for another project. I'll stick that back in the bag so it stays clean and doesn't get pet hair or anything on it, but I'm going to set it aside for right now. Let's open this up. Since this is such a small project, I'm actually not going to use any glue or anything. I'm just going to pin baste. If you're doing a larger quilt, then you might want to use some type of glue. The only glue that I ever use on quilts is Elmer's glue, like a little school glue. A lot of people like spray basting, which is like a adhesive spray. I personally do not like it. That stuff really stinks and it gave me a headache. I was outside when I used it, so I was in a well ventilated area and I took breaks between spraying, but I just did not like it. And it was extremely sticky. The quilt was sticky through the fabric and I didn't like it. So then I started using Elmer's glue and I did lots of experimentation on mixing it with water and spraying it or kind of painting it on with a brush. And now I just use the little bottle and I just squeeze it on in little strips and it works great. So, but we don't need to use glue for this. This is such a small project. So I'm just going to get my backing fabric here, put on the batting. Just like that. Kind of smooth it out with my hands like that. And then I'm flipping it over. And there is our batting for the quilt top. So I'm going to grab the quilt top and I'm just going to place it on the batting and making sure that I have a little wiggle room. That's why I cut the backing and the batting a little larger than what the quilt top is going to be. So I've got a little excess batting and backing all on all edges of the quilt. So that just ensures that you have plenty of material. Because when you're quilting, the batting and backing is naturally going to shift a little bit. And this just ensures that you are covered on the top and on the back when you go to trim it up. So that looks good. I just like to smooth it out first before I start pinning. So that is nice and smoothed. And now I'm going to grab my pins. I use just regular safety pins. You can use quilting safety pins. Those have kind of like a curve in them. They look nice. I just haven't taken the time to order any and tried them out, but I just use regular safety pins and these work great. So I'm just going to work on sticking safety pins in here just to hold everything in place. Okay, now I have this pin basted and I am going to quilt. So the quilting that I want to do on this quilt is the same quilting that we did for our little pumpkin mug rug. I thought it'd be really cute if they matched, and I just really like this loop-de-loop quilting. It's a lot of fun to do, and I thought it would be a great beginner-friendly free motion quilting design. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I will show me doing it kind of in fast motion. I am also going to be doing a in-depth tutorial on how to do this quilting. So that tutorial will be linked up here in the cards or down in the description box. So you can go watch that if you want to learn how to do this quilting. But if you already know how to do it, then just continue watching the video and you'll see me do it in fast forward motion. All right, so as you can see, I have finished the quilting on the table runner. looks so cute. I love this quilting. So now that we have the quilting completed on our little quilt, now is the time to trim it up. So I'm going to trim off all the excess backing and batting and square up the corners so we're ready to add our binding. So the way that I like to square up my corners is I use a square ruler like this one, and I just line it up in my first corner. It doesn't matter which corner you do, but I like to line it up in my first corner. And a lot of times I will actually use seams as a guideline. So I'll line up an inch line on the ruler with a seam to help get a nice straight line. I'm just going to make sure that I have it lined up in the corner here, and then I'm going to cut. Just like that. Now I have a really nice square corner here. So now I'm just going to continue trimming this down. For the long edges, I always use my long ruler just because it's a little bit easier. So the way that I do that is I line up a corner into that corner into our square corner that we got, and I line up the edge with the edge of the fabric, just like that. There we go. Cut. Might be a little excess there. Okay, and then I just keep on going down the line. Okay, now that I'm at the other corner, I'm going to actually grab my square, put the square in the corner. Let me make sure that you are in view of that. So I've got my square here, and I'm lining up that bottom edge of the square with the edge that I cut. And then I'm lining up this edge with the edge of the fabric on that side. Trim off that little extra piece. And there's another nice square corner. Then I just rotate, and I'll just keep using the square for the corner since this edge is so short. Line it up. And there we have table runner all trimmed down. So now it's going to measure 15 by 42, and that's the finished size of the table runner. So now all we need to do is add our binding. Let me show you the back with that loop-de-loop. I love this stitching so much. It's so cute. All right, enough of that. So now we're going to add our binding. I went ahead and made my binding. I used the same fabric that I used for all of the pumpkin stems to kind of tie it all together. And I really like a dark border on my quilts. I just think it looks really nice. And the binding adds a nice little thin border all the way around. So I went ahead and made this. I cut my 2.5-inch strips and then sewed them together and pressed them in half. And that's what I have here. So see, these were just 2.5-inch strips that I pressed in half. And I just have it on this leftover spool from my thread, and that just kind of holds it in place, and it looks cute. It looks nice for pictures and stuff. So that's a little tip if you want to use your old spools for stuff. Holding your binding is perfect. So I am going to start adding our binding to the quilt, and let's go over to the sewing machine and start doing that. All right, we are at the sewing machine now. I went ahead and set it back up for regular sewing. I put my regular 1/4-inch seam foot back on the sewing machine. I also changed my stitch length back to 3, and I put my feed dogs back up because I want them to help me. So I've got the quilt here. I always sew the binding onto the top of the quilt first. That's how most people do it. If you want to do it the other way, that's totally fine. Just know that there's going to be a little edge left on the front. So, but yeah, I like to have that on the back. So here's my little binding spool. I'm just going to set this to the side, unravel it a little bit, and I'm going to add the binding. If you would like a full length binding tutorial, let me know in the comments below and I can definitely make that for you. I just don't want this tutorial to be super long. I know some of my tutorials have been ridiculously long, and I don't know. I like long tutorials, but I know some people don't, so I'm trying to break them down into shorter tutorials for you guys. So let me know if that's something you would like, and I can definitely whip up a binding tutorial for you. I'm just going to start stitching this onto my quilt top using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm going to be using mitered corners on the corners, and you'll see me doing that. Now I'm going to flip the quilt over and attach the binding to the back. So I just fold over the binding like that. Just like that. And you can use clips or pins if you would like. I usually just fold it over as I go along. So here is our finished table runner. How cute is this? I just love this. This is such a fun, quick quilting project. This only took a few hours to make from start to finish, to make the blocks and then make the little quilt top, quilt it, and bind it. So this is a really great introduction into quilting if you haven't really made quilts before and you think that making a quilt is just too time consuming or intimidating. Something like this is a really great option for you. So thank you so much for clicking on this video. Don't forget to download that free resource with the 5 other projects to make for your fall home decor using these pumpkin quilt blocks that we used today. And just thank you so much for sticking around to the end of the video. I really appreciate it. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. I'd be thrilled if you'd join me here on YouTube to go through all my quilting adventures that I'm going to be going on, and just have a great rest of your day. Bye.